Next up on ATVN Sports Extra, the Trojans aren't feeling so hot after a loss to Washington a week ago. We have an exclusive interview with Coach Kiffin on the game and the first months of his second stint at SC. And it's redemption time for volleyball as well. The women of Troy are looking to dig, spike, and serve up a win. And this weekend it's all Cardinal, all the time. Count them, four USC teams all face off against Stanford. Sports Extra starts now. Welcome to Sports Extra, the weekly show that takes you around campus for an up-close look at Trojan sports. I'm your host, Alex Wilk. USC is coming off its first loss of the year, a 32-31 upset at the hands of Washington in the final seconds. But this week, it's a loss from a year ago. It's on the minds of fans and players alike. Yeah, this week the Trojans travel to 16th-ranked Stanford, the same team that handed USC its worst defeat of the Pete Carroll era last November. Cardinal lost All-American running back Toby Gerhart to the NFL, but they still have Luck on their side. Andrew Luck, that is, and he has the most passing yards of any Pac-10 quarterback. He can scoot, too. He's a dual threat, just the kind of quarterback that gives USC trouble. Coach Kiffin called Wednesday's practice the most physical of the season. The goal was to build up some toughness for a defense that hasn't tackled well through the first 5 games.
Their offense isn't too complicated. You know, you kind of know what's going to come, and they're not going to try to trick you or do all kind of like Washington had a lot of plays, and a lot of different formations and stuff like that. So, you know, it's easier to play against a quarterback like Luck because their offense isn't as complicated.
They're just a team that, you know, they kind of overload one side of the line and they put all their linemen there and they say, you know, we're running the ball right here and, you know, stop us.
They're going to pass the ball. So we come out, we understand that, and we know that they run the ball more than they pass the ball. So we'll be ready for it.
With Andrew Luck, when he scrambles, you got to make sure that you stay on your guy because he can scramble, keep his head up, and throw the ball.
Now, before Trojan fans start reaching for the panic button, remember, Stanford's defense gave up 52 points to Oregon a week ago. And for USC, Matt Barkley is still the most efficient quarterback in the conference. As Barkley goes, so does USC this year. Barkley threw only 20 passes last week, his fewest of the season. We caught up with the USC QB earlier this week.
Their front seven, you know, we're not keying out anyone this game, but their front seven are aggressive in there and they get after it. So we're going to try to get their DBs and get over the top, but their front seven, especially some of their linebackers, come downhill and they play very hard. Well, we were running the ball really well, and if we're going to do that, and if we're going to get first downs by running it, then I'm fine with doing that. And so we might air it out a little more this week, but whatever we're doing to move the ball, I'm fine with.
As for Coach Kiffin, he's obviously disappointed with last week's loss to Washington, but he's still optimistic about the Trojans' future. Sports Extra's Trevor Thompson caught up with Coach Kiffin in an exclusive interview.
Coach, I want to thank you for joining us here on Sports Extra. I want to start off by talking about the Washington loss. Obviously a tough loss. How long do you give yourself and your team in terms of time to get over this loss? Do you give yourself a day or two, or do you just tell the players in the locker room after the game, look, we got to move on, move forward?
No, you have to learn from it. We usually take 24 hours, and you can't just get rid of it. You got to make sure that you learn from your mistakes so that you don't make them again. And so we spent all day Sunday on that, and now we move forward to Stanford.
There's been a lot of second-guessing in the media about why you chose not to call timeouts in the waning few moments against Washington. You said in your press conference it had something to do with the way Washington was moving the ball. Could you clarify that a little bit?
Yeah, I was gonna use them before on the third down when they were going to kick a field goal if we stopped them, and then Jake came out on the bootleg and went out of bounds and made the first down. And then after that, they had moved the ball in the next rush. It became apparent to me they were going to keep moving the ball, you know. And the last thing I wanted to do was move all the way down and have a chip shot of a field goal. At that distance, we had somewhat of a chance to block it. So it didn't appear to me we were going to be able to get the ball back because we would have had to stop them on second and third down to get the ball back, you know, with maybe 15 seconds.
So was it more a lack of confidence in your defense or an amount of respect for Jake Locker's ability to move the Huskies down the field?
No, it's just you have to take in the whole game. You have to take in exactly where you're at in the game and how it's been. And we were worn down at that point, and our best chance at that point was to keep the field goal at some distance to where we could put in our big guys and have a chance to block it.
Of course, every loss is disappointing, but would you say that this particular loss has been your most disappointing so far in your head coaching career?
Well, the Alabama one last year was pretty tough because we, you know, similar type of feeling. You know, we lost right at the end, and we were kicking the field goal and we missed it, and so I haven't had very good luck with kickers lately. And this one was the other way around. So you know, that one was tough, a chance to beat the #1 team, but this one was really tough as well. So many different chances to win the game. You know, so many times to put the game away, to make one play and the game's over on offense and defense.
Coach, thanks so much for joining us once again.
Thank you.
Kiffin and the Trojans certainly have some work to do if they want to upset the 16th-ranked Cardinal. For a preview of tomorrow's game, we now welcome in ESPN Los Angeles beat writer Mark Saxon. Mark, thank you very much for joining us.
My pleasure.
For a second week in a row, USC's looking for revenge a little bit. Last year didn't work out so well for them. What do you think about this year?
Well, yeah, I think that this may be, if you're looking at the revenge angle, is a little bit more defined. I mean, they got absolutely pounded at home by this team last year, who was simply more physical than them, ran it down their throat. And I just think that, yeah, I mean, if you're talking about a game that maybe left some sore feelings, this would certainly be the kind of game.
These are two offenses that are extremely potent at times this year, and also two defenses that have had a lot of struggles as well. Is this going to become a shootout, or do the Trojans really want to keep this as a ball control kind of game?
I think that, you know, both teams have ball control elements of their offenses. According to Lane Kiffin, this Stanford defense is radically improved. And, you know, the evidence thus far is that the USC defense, you know, has not really improved. They're 116th in the nation in passing defense. They're 99th in overall defense. I think the question is much more, can USC slow down Stanford than the other way around?
USC's had pretty much every running back on the team start or get some serious playing time. Who do you think has the upper hand this week in terms of starting at running back?
You know, it's bizarre. I don't know exactly why they don't simply say that Alan Bradford is the starting running back on this team. Whether they're trying to motivate him through competition, whether they want him to feel unsettled for whatever reason. But, you know, the guy's coming off a career day, 223 net yards rushing. He was pounding people. He was finding holes. He was cutting. He looked dynamic. And, you know, Mark Tyler's been a little bit banged up. So to me, certainly the front runner is Alan Bradford. You know, they've said as much, but they're simply not willing to say he's the #1 guy.
Mark, thank you very much for joining us. Appreciate it.
Pleasure, anytime.
Now, the football team isn't the only one with an important matchup against Stanford this weekend. Far from it. Perhaps the most crucial of the weekend's USC-Stanford matches goes down tonight at the Galen Center, where the 8th-ranked women of Troy host #1 Stanford. Just 24 hours later, USC welcomes #7 Cal. We talked with head coach Mick Haley about the team's tough weekend.
Well, we can't give them a lot of points. They're not going to give us a lot of points. And when you play conference teams like Stanford and Cal, you have to really understand what they're trying to do. And I think we have a pretty good understanding of where they are. They're certainly still experimenting with some things, too. Being confident enough to make adjustments is going to be important for this weekend. But I think Stanford's been very good about making the opponents earn every one of their points. And they'll continue to try to do that with us. And we need to make sure that we do the same thing to them.
The team got a major wake-up call from their loss to Washington last weekend. Sports Extra's Josephine Lee shows us how the women of Troy are working on a comeback.
The women of Troy are kicking it up a notch in practice this week after suffering their first loss of the season.
We've picked up our intensity, and the coaches have as well, and I think it's good that we all know that we can lose if we don't work as hard as we can.
And for the Trojans, a loss against Washington may have prepared them for 2 tough Pac-10 matchups this weekend.
And I think the loss will help us because it's going to make us want to win much more, and it's going to drive us to be better in practice and know that every single ball counts during practice and during a game.
Also, kind of positive that it happened that early in the season because we get to learn that lesson that early. We get to grow from that a little sooner than expected, I guess.
Coming into this weekend, we are going to want a rematch. We want to win. We don't want to lose at home. And playing Stanford and Barkley, the two really good teams who are undefeated right now, is just going to be really good for us because we're going to want to go out and kick butt.
And after being on the road, the players say they're happy to be back playing in front of their home crowd.
We're all proud to just play in front of our parents and our crowd and feel so supported, you know.
We have great fans who are really loud, and usually we feed off that energy. And being at home with the home court advantage and not having to travel a lot and being tired and whatnot will help a lot too.
From the Galen Center, Josephine Lee, ATVN Sports Extra.
The Bay Area schools accounted for 1/3 of USC's 9 losses last season. Now there's one team that knows next to nothing about losing, men's water polo. The team is undefeated this season and has had just 2 defeats in the last 3 years. Number 1 USC pays a visit to who else? 4th-ranked Stanford on Saturday. Sports Extra's Jonathan Kendrick has a preview of the showdown in the pool.
Expectations are high for the top-ranked USC men's water polo team as they head into this weekend's matchup. The team is full of confidence after winning the SoCal tournament for the 8th straight year last week. We spoke with Mace Rapsey about how the team is focusing on this weekend's game.
Play hard, like it's going to be a hard game. Like they're a physical team, and they're fast, and they've got a few big guys. And I suppose the key is to stick to our game plan and obviously just push our counters and hopefully get over them in the top, and don't let the crowd get in our heads and have a good time.
In the last 17 matchups against the Cardinal, the Trojans are 17-0. Jonathan Kendrick, ATVN Sports Extra.
After Stanford, the Trojans host number 3 Cal and 5th-ranked UCSB in 2 weeks. While football is looking for revenge tomorrow in Palo Alto, women's soccer will look to reclaim some honor tonight. Stanford comes in at the top of the NCAA rankings. To shut down the league's 5th-ranked offense, USC needs a big game from true freshman goalie Shelby Church. Sports Extra's Whitney Blaine caught up with Church to find out how the freshman handles her leadership role. Church and the Trojans have allowed just 7 goals this season. That makes the team's defense one of the strongest in Division I. On to the golf course now, where the women of Troy entered an invitational tournament ranked 2nd in the nation this week. Sports Extra's Johnnie Freatman wraps up the week in Tacoma.
USC finished 2nd in the Adine Landfelt Invitational on Wednesday. The Trojans posted their lowest single-round score in school history to finish 2 shots back of the Cal Bears. Entering the final round 7 shots behind, the Trojans were led by junior Lisa McCloskey. McCloskey's 8-under par 64 tied a school record. However, it was not enough to overcome the 5th-ranked Bears. Johnnie Freatman, ATVN Sports Extra.
USC has nearly a month off before the next tournament, the Pac-10 SEC Challenge in, you guessed it, Palo Alto. That's just spooky. Let's get as far away from Stanford as possible with men's basketball. Standout Nikola Vucevic was named to the John R. Wooden Award preseason top 50 this week. The LA Athletic Club placed Vucevic on the list for both his athletic and academic achievements. Vucevic averaged 10.7 points a game to go along with 9.4 rebounds this past spring. Athletes must have a GPA over 2.0 and be making progress towards a degree to be eligible for the award. The Wooden All-American team will be announced during the Elite 8 round of the NCAA tournament. And that brings us to a special commentary. USC has long had a reputation of being a football school, and with good reason. 11 national championships and 6 Heisman winners have come and gone in USC's storied football history. But let me give you one more number, 11. That's how many postseason games USC's basketball team could play this year. And it's 11 more than the football team will have a chance to play because of NCAA sanctions. Football's playing for pride, but the basketball team is playing for respect and a title. The football team is bogged down by NCAA sanctions, and football isn't going to be a black hole of media attention for the first half of basketball season. This time, basketball can bounce into the spotlight. You may not have noticed, but USC's men's basketball team is a good squad. The talented mix of upperclassmen and exciting newcomers like Bryce and Maurice Jones, this could be the most successful Trojan team since 2007, when USC made it to the 3rd round of the NCAA tournament. Head coach Kevin O'Neill is making major strides in recruiting for SC. If USC fans throw their support behind the basketball team, this school could join the ranks of the few athletic programs that are elite in both football and basketball. Now that list includes schools like Texas, Michigan, Florida, and for the most part, UCLA. Consider this, nearly 100,000 fans fill the Coliseum each Saturday in the fall, and that's more than just students and alumni. LA is a city full of Trojans, and it's also a city obsessed with a basketball team that plays right down the street. And if that's not a perfect storm, I don't know what is. With some support from you, the fans, USC can officially become a basketball school. That's it for this edition of ATVN Sports Extra. Check us out every Friday at noon all semester long on atvn.org.